This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. I have massive safety and abandonment issues that have stemmed from multiple traumas in my life. And I have incredibly empowering days and others where I feel very alone in my diagnosis. And some days feel like I kind of want to throw in the towel because my pain is just too high to bear. And if you haven't been listening to this show this far and this is your first episode, welcome. It is nice to have you here. Please stay because we love you. But the disease that I have for new listeners is called CRPS. It's called chronic regional pain syndrome. And it sounds fake, but I can tell you it's not. But it is also coined the suicide disease. So that thought of suicide as an exit strategy, unfortunately, is always in the back of my mind. Even if it's just like a whisper, because of how incredibly painful living is now. But when I think about dying, I have so many conflicted ideas of what that actually means and what it means to me and what it would mean to others in my life should something happen to me. And I was raised in a religious home where the idea of death was always around teachings from the Bible, how we have to believe, how we have to behave, how we have to live, how we have to do all of these things or you're not going to heaven, none of which I believe any longer. I believe in being a good person. I believe in working hard. I believe in loving hard. I believe in all of that good stuff, right? I just don't believe in the commercialized version of God and religion and how it's thrown at us the way that it was to me. This is my take on it, right? And I'm not an atheist. I am agnostic. I believe there is a reason that we forge friendships with people and that we fall in love with the people that we fall in love with and we get emotional about things in our life that are meaningful to us. And we get the chills, which I just got, when something sparks within us, and I believe that that is for a reason. I don't know what the reason is. And I don't think many can say that they do, but I guess that's what faith is all about. And I'm not afraid of dying like I used to be, but I think I probably am in the minority there in that statement. Some days I feel more afraid of living in the pain that I experience than living in the fear of dying. Super uplifting, right, Lyndsay? But that is why I am here. Because I know my body cannot heal until I feel truly safe. And I am in a mission to feel safe, to not feel abandoned, and on a mission to heal. So I wanted to thank my listeners for always making me feel safe. So I want to bring you, without further ado, to my guest today. I'm so excited, guys. I mean, I've already been crying with her this morning because I'm just that person, right? Nicole Angelique Kerr, welcome.
Thank you, Lyndsay, so much. I mean, I have been looking forward to this for a long time, and I just am so delighted, excited, and grateful for the opportunity to be on your show.
Well, let me give you a quick little intro here. So Nicole is an award-winning health expert and is the author of the best-selling book, You Are Deathless, How a Near-Death Experience Taught Me to Fully Live and Not Fear Death. She has co-authored nutrition books and has appeared on CNN, PBS, CBS, ABC, the Food Channel, and a host of other TV and radio shows to share her unique perspective on wellness, lifestyle, and nutrition. And I'll tell you a lot more than that. When she was a 19-year-old cadet at the United States Air Force Academy, Nicole was forced to learn how to live and love a little bit differently following a pretty brutal and terrifying transformative NDE. And we're going to tell you what NDE is if you don't know what it is. Her memory of this car crash that she had came back 20 years later. And it has taken Nicole almost another 2 decades to align her soul, spirit, mind, and bod, proving healing is certainly a nonlinear process. And that is for sure, girl. So let's get going. I'm rolling out the red carpet for you.
Thank you. I feel like I'm at the Oscars.
You are. Well, it's better than the actual Oscars. Okay.
Yes.
And I finished your book a few weeks ago, and it's mostly yellow now because of how much I've highlighted it and dog-eared. I mean, that's how I read. I read to study and to learn and all of this. But for some reason, I just absolutely connected with so much of what you talk about in this book. And it's emotional and it's scary and it's sad. And what an amazing woman you are. So
thank you. Well, that's why it took me 13 years to actually write it and publish it and get it out there, because it was hard. And I just did the Audible version, and that took me 3 months, and it should be out the end of next month, maybe. But I was getting triggered left and right, just hearing recorded your own voice and then listen back to your own story. And I thought, oh my God, you want to talk about more pain? I was like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? For that 30% of the market that doesn't or isn't able to read,
Yeah. Well, we're so used to starting to listen a little bit more. And I think one of the things that's happened is podcasting actually has made us listen more, which I think we all needed as a culture and a globe, quite frankly, is to sit down and really listen to people's stories and hear what they talk about and hear the things that they've gone through. And it really gives us all a little bit more perspective in life. So I'd like to start talking with you about what happened. Let's jump right into your car crash. And let's talk about what an NDE is. I'm not saying it out loud because I want you to start talking about it. And let's take it from there.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what an NDE is first. It's a near-death experience. And hundreds of thousands of people have reported these. It is when your body, you go out of your body. Okay. So your soul, your spirit, leaves your body. Some people will have it where they are like in an operating room or a situation where they leave their body, and that's an out of body experience. So there's two different things. With a near death experience, you are actually dead. You get pronounced dead, and then you come back. And it typically is people that have brain injuries or heart, because those are areas that someone has to resuscitate you to bring you back. So you're not bringing, yourself back, but they happen in so many ways. People drown, people, all kinds of stories are out there from people. So there's been a lot of documentation on it. The first person that coined the term near-death experience was Dr. Raymond Moody. He wrote a book a long time ago because he saw a lot of his patients that he thought were dead that were coming back to life, for various reasons. So the most common element that you will hear about from people that have experienced this is bright white lights. That's what you typically will hear. And it's a light. It's not blinding. It's a clear white light. And it is not going to like a flash that just, your eyes just go like that. It is the most soothing. You feel like you're an astronaut in outer space. It's like you're just wrapped in these angel wings, and you feel so comforted and so blissed out and just so loved. And it's really kind of indescribable. It's beauty, it's light, it's loving kindness. And it is an amazing experience. And I actually went to the other side, meaning the other side of the veil. And that is what typically happens is you will, on a human level, your body may code, or it may go flatline or whatever, but your consciousness, it has gone, your spirit has gone to this other side. So the way mine happened is I was 19 years old and a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy. Now, there's nothing military about me except my father. Okay. I grew up running a teen board. I was 17 magazine representative from Mississippi. I did junior achievement. I went to public school for 3 years in Mississippi and then went back to private school. I never was interested in airplanes. They made me claustrophobic. So I'm 5'11", okay, and I'm not your typical cadet, okay? And so what am I doing at the Air Force Academy, first of all, is
totally. You should have been a model.
I was doing part of that, but it was still like pleasing my father. So I'm in recovery for people pleasing. I've been in that for a while now because that's one of the identities that we take on, especially as women, but men do it too. And at the end of the day, you feel like a roach that's been squashed. It absolutely does nothing for you. Maybe for the other person, but not for you, because you never form your own opinions. You never are able to express anything about you. It's always what someone else you're going to say to someone else to make them feel good. So you're not using your true voice. You're not being your true self. And it's a trap we fall into easily, especially coming from the South, because we want everybody to like us. You know, we don't want anybody to be angry at us. We don't want to be, can't hurt our mother. We can't be angry at our father. You know, all these sayings that you hear. So at 19, I didn't think I was going to get in because they'd only started admitting women in the first class was graduated in 1980. So my class was 86, which is one of the first classes. And I just didn't think I was going to pass the physical test. You had to get a congressional nomination. It's a lot of work to get into one of the service academies. Okay. It is not just fill out one form and send it into your college and pay the fee.
Yeah. Write a paper.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
or have your parents write the paper for you, you know? But anyway, I got accepted and I went, oh shit, now I got to go because I've done all of this and I cannot say no. So, you know, I showed up for boot camp and I'd already pre-cut my hair because I knew it was going to be short. Well, it wasn't short enough. So they cut it into, all the women looked like Dorothy Hamill. We all had these soup bowl haircuts. But I knew straight away that that place was not for me, not for my soul. And I knew for sure the first 3 weeks during boot camp, it's 6 weeks, but we got a break at 3 to call home. And I had a 3-minute phone call and I heard my mother's voice and I proceeded to cry the next 3 minutes, hyperventilate. I didn't realize till years later that was my first panic attack. I didn't say one word. I just heard her voice. And then my commander says, go over there, Nicole, and get your shit together. And I was just like, what? I just couldn't process it. And what I needed to hear was my parents to tell me it's okay to leave. You don't have to put up with abuse. You don't have to put up with whatever. If it's not a match for you, you can leave. And I didn't hear that. And then my mother tells me years later, well, I asked her father, what have we done to her? And he said, oh, she'll be fine. Well, I was not fine. I went from where I was in my squadron to remedial training, which is one-on-one, which I thought I was in hell already. That was super hell.
Hell.
And so, you know, I was pulled away from my squadron and I was just one-on-one with this other senior cadet. And he was just determined that I wasn't going to make it. And so I just lived in fear, constant fear and just impending doom. Something bad was going to happen because I was doing obstacle courses, competence courses, bayonet assault courses. I just thought for sure I was going to fall off one of those platforms and break my back or just something because I never held a weapon in my life, you know? And I'm like, Dad, what the hell were you thinking sending me there? You know, and not only was it physical abuse, mental abuse, and emotional abuse, it was sexual abuse because now you had introduced women. So fast forward my sophomore year 2, I still knew that I needed to quit and still didn't have the courage to do it. So my soul got me out. And that's the way I choose to see this story. And it unfortunately was a very horrific way to do it. But I was at a squadron function. There was drinking going on. The Air Force was providing alcohol to underage cadets. Which was against the rules. And I was one of the last to leave. And I got a ride back with a senior who I didn't know very well. And he wanted to stop and have a couple more drinks. And I was like, hey, I'm going to have some fun, which I never do. And he wanted a cigarette. I said, I've never had a cigarette. So I tried one. And my dad's rules were no smoking, no drinking, and no dating upperclassmen. Those were his 3 rules. And in my house, Dad was God. And if you broke his rules, you always got punished because he was a graduate of the academy and then went on and cross-commissioned into the Marine Corps. And so he was hardcore. We grew up very much in the Bible Belt in Jackson, Mississippi, very religious. And what he said went, and he better not tell you that again. You hear it once. If you don't get it once, you're going to get a whipping. You're going to get punished. Something's going to happen to you. Anyway, he wanted to go now and watch the sunset at the Rocky Mountains. Well, Nicole has never been on a date. Okay. My dad didn't see anything positive in dating, but yet wants to send me to a school with 4,000 guys. So
that actually sounds like a little bit of heaven for me.
Well, man in a uniform, they know what the women's uniforms, we look like potato sacks, but the men, okay. So anyway, he wanted to make out. And I was like, oh my God, this guy had a whole different agenda. I was just trying to get a ride back to the academy because we had to be back by 7:35 or we'd get in trouble. And I did not want to start this year in trouble. So needless to say, we never made it back to the academy. He pulled off to the road because I told him we had to get going. And the last thing that I remember was pulling onto the road. And then I woke up in the ICU at Penrose Community Hospital and was told basically that I had been in a car accident with this guy and he was at another hospital. And they didn't tell me how severe it was. I didn't find out until much later when the EMT that I credit, he's one of my angels. I have a chapter in the book called Calling All Angels, and I believe angels come in earth form and human form, and he was one of them. And he got to the scene 10 to 13 minutes after the 911 call went out. Some people, this is in Monument, Colorado, in a real rural area near a park. And he, what turned out to have happened was he grabbed my crotch. He made a sexual advance toward me when he got back on the road. And I said no. And he got really angry at me and he turned the wheel of the car and the car fishtailed and hit a huge boulder, moved the boulder, flipped the car. And needless to say, I went airborne without having to go to Fort Benning, Georgia to actually learn how to do that. But I flew out of the car. And when my memory came back 19 years later, okay, that's coming out of Starbucks, working at the CDC. I remembered flying. I went butt up through the windshield, because what I had done, it was a Corvette with a convertible with the top down, 65, didn't have seat belts, which saved both of us. But I had one foot on the dashboard and the other one crossed over. Do not sit like that in a car or hang your feet out of the car. Please, people, that is the worst way. If you're ever in an accident, you're going to have so many more injuries. So keep your feet in the car on the floor mat, please. Okay,
sounds like a silly thing, but you know what? My feet are always burning. So I put my feet up on the air conditioning if my sweetie's driving, because my feet are so hot and I don't bring my ice booties with me everywhere I go. But I'm not even kidding you. This week I did it. And I immediately thought of you and your book because of that exact statement. And I put my feet down. And he's like, "Oh, are your feet feeling better?" And I'm like, "No, they're not, but I'm still not going to do that again." So you already sat with me. And man, the pictures in the book, especially of the car, it's hard to believe that anybody could actually live. I mean, this car, guys, is completely squished. It doesn't look like a car. It looks like something that you'd see on a tow truck being from a mauled accident, and that there's no way people would survive. And both of you survived.
Yes.
But of course, I'm not going to name his name because I don't like him very much, by the way.
No,
after reading your book, I don't care for him.
He's an alcoholic narcissist, and his dad wore 3 stars and was able to get him. Rank has its privilege in the military, and was able to get his son to be able to graduate. And we, needless to say, he has never apologized to me, and we have no communication.
Yeah.
So that's he had some injuries on his back, but he went back a week later, and
it's so typical of drinking, the drivers that are drinking in accidents, that they end up not getting hurt, where other people are just completely devastated.
Right. And he had double the limit. And so Colorado, did charge him with vehicular assault and driving under the influence. And he pleaded guilty and got a deferred sentence. So that's why Law and Order is my favorite show, because Lyndsay, I want the justice,
Totally.
It's just because I didn't feel like, I got any from him. But anyhow, got to let that go, move on with life. And so needless to say, I pieced this together from my paramedic or EMT. They were a volunteer, and then the 3 different units got there a little bit later. But some passerbys, house, they heard the wreck and came out, a group of them. And they're actually in one of the pictures that was on the front page of the paper that I put in the book. And they had called 911 and checked me themselves, couldn't find a pulse, went in and got a blanket, covered me up, So I was clinically dead somewhere between 10 and 13 minutes, they
Wow,
estimate.
that's so long. God.
So what happened was when John, the paramedic, got to the scene, he said, look, I checked the victims myself, and he undid the blanket, and he couldn't get any vitals either. So he did one last thing, which is a sternal knuckle press, which it's very painful to have done to you, and it's designed to elicit pain in the body. And the only thing that responded was my right eye. It flickered and the pupil dilated. And at that moment, have you heard the saying, what do you know about windows and soul?
Plenty, but I don't know what you're going to say outside of we've got a live one.
Have you heard of our eyes are the window to the soul?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So at that moment, my soul came back into my body through my eye. And then he was able to get a blood pressure on me of 60/0, which is still pretty much dead. I was in a state of shock, of course. I was bleeding from the bone, which is the degree of shock that I was in. They got me masked pants on. They'd never even used them. This is the first time they did it, but that pushes all the blood up to your vitals. Got me in the ambulance, got me to the nearest hospital, which was a community-based hospital. It was not a trauma hospital. And the surgeon on call that night happened to be a maverick. She was the first woman surgeon in Colorado Springs. She was a thoracic surgeon, and she got the call that night and came in, and it was like they just were hoping to stabilize me. And my body finally stabilized after almost a whole night of just being in the surgery operating room. So I wake up the next morning and I'm just like, where am I? And then
what the hell just happened to me?
Yeah, because I'm like,
especially because you didn't have memory of it. Like that's got to be scary in and of itself. Just having absolutely no recollection. Here I am. The last thing I knew, this dude was trying to grope me. And now here I am. And like with all of these injuries, the list of injuries is like freaking intense when I was reading all of this.
Lots of fractures.
You
left
poor
foot,
baby.
Amputated, right wrist severed, pelvis broken, gangrene had set in, sepsis had set in from all the openings. I had to have multiple skin grafts. I had bad road burn from skidding on the pavement. It was a up and go.
And your poor little vagina.
I cut a 4th degree laceration because I went through the windshield. So I took a huge chunk of skin out of the right upper part of the thigh. And so that cut both sides of my vagina. And so I have no feeling there. And I had never had sex. So that was something that the VA now rewards me $100 a month for the loss of a creative organ. But that only started 3 years ago because I didn't know that having sex, I wouldn't feel anything. I didn't know that wasn't normal because I had never had normal.
Right. That just, my heart breaks because I love sex so incredibly. Like,
so does my husband. And I'm just like,
your husband is an angel as well, by the way.
Well, but it's been very hard for both of us.
Of course,
because
I know. Just reading about what you guys have been through together and what a warrior and champion he's been, at least from my perspective in reading your book. It's like, it's nuts to have people that stick by you. And I know that it's very, very hard. I have that issue even in my relationship with my sweetie. We've been together for a long time, but he's got my body that he deals with,
Yes.
And it's very, very different from what you've experienced by a long shot, but it's really, really hard on him on the daily. Like he checks in every morning because he wakes up super early and goes to work. And how are you doing? How did we sleep? And I'm like, just stop asking me in the morning. All right.
Yeah. No, mine just, how was your head? And there are caretakers and, it's just, you have to get over the fact that if you have the belief you're a burden or any of this kind of stuff, this is just the way life played out. And thank God we found, mates that are empathetic, understanding, sympathetic, compassionate, but I will tell you, that the experience that I've had is for a reason. And that is when I was on the other side, my memory came back 19 years later. And the messages that I got, I want to tell you guys about them because they're amazing. And it happened. And this is called repressed memories. Okay. So people that have been in traumatic situations, whether it's, being raped or any kind of trauma, and you don't remember it, your body it keeps the score. There's a
Yes, the
great
body
book
keeps the score.
by Dr. Vander Colt
Yep.
that it remembers. And there's a part of your brain called the hippocampus that keeps those memories in store. So I believe that my memories did not come back because I was not in a position to be supported by them until that point. I didn't have any support. I lived by myself. I didn't even have a cat or a dog. I was very controlled in my behavior. I didn't socially want to stay out past 10. I didn't want to be around people drinking. I mean, there was a lot of rules that I imposed on myself because I didn't want something to happen to me again. And so I became a very controlling person in terms of my safety. And the other part for me was just coming from a religious household and upbringing where the concept of God, I grew up Southern Baptist and Lutheran. So God was a duality. He loved you. He cared for you. He protected you on one side of things. But if you broke the rules, and each church had different rules, they all had the 10 commandments, but then they added their own rules. And depending on which church you went to, it got longer and longer. I mean, there's no way you're going to win in any of these churches.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because it's always a defeated situation. That's at least my take on it. I'm like, I'm never going to win this battle.
No, you're not. And
it made me feel like crap, and it made me feel shameful, and it made me feel guilty. It made me feel not good enough. It made me feel like I had to become a people pleaser, and I had to make sure that everybody was happy. And I was always the last. And I talk about it on the show all the time that I am always at the bottom of the list. I'm shifting it, but now I'm kind of like in the middle.
Well, when you're indoctrinated, think about 6 years old. That is the age developmentally where we are trying to individuate. You're off to first grade. You don't need mommy to hold your hand on the bus. If you're not allowed to individuate, you don't develop that rationale and that set of skills to be able to know that you can make decisions and you can be supported with them and that you're safe to make them. And I lived in a hub in a neighborhood that was, all white. They all believed, they were all some form of a Christian denomination. So we were hearing about God at school, God at church, God in community. So you never heard anything different. It was the same version of God, just different rules. But it was always the other side of God was judgmental, punishing. The wrath of God will come on you. There's this place called hell somewhere in earth. And I talk about that in the book. As a kid, kids take things literally. And
no kidding.
I mean, they do, and it's like, oh my gosh, hell. I don't want to go there because I'm going to eat barbecue all the time. And I don't really like barbecue. And I'm thinking my soul's going to burn in hell. That's the first time I heard the word soul. Otherwise, I knew it as soul food and soul music. And I thought, what is my soul? I don't even know what that is, but it's going to burn. And how do I take a shower down there? That's going to put the
I love you for that. Yeah, for me, I'd be like, can I color code when I'm in hell? And, my sweetie always says the funniest thing. And he goes, if we're going to hell, that's because that's where all the fun people are.
Well, that's just it. But as a child, it's like
it's scary as hell.
To be separated from your family. That's the biggest thing, that you somehow are bad enough that God is going to separate you from your family. And you're going to just live this life of absolute hell and condemnation. And you're just, why live at that point? It's like,
and not to mention forever.
Yeah.
And that is a hard concept. Yeah. Eternity is no end.
Yes.
And there was a movie, and I forget the name of it. I wish I remembered it. But when I was a kid growing up, because I went to Christian school from preschool through the middle of junior high. And then that's when everything went off the rails. But anyway, we were shown a movie. God dang, I wish I remembered the name of it. But it was the scariest movie about Armageddon and about what was going to happen. There was like this flying horse with a scorpion tail, and there were fires, and they were killing all of the children, and there were car wrecks all over the freeway because God came back and all of us sinners were left to basically die here. And it was just what? I probably was in third or fourth grade.
Yeah.
That I think about that all of the time, that fear-based approach to religion and God. Hello.
Well, and that is where it gets indoctrinated into us. And what I am trying to do is my message on the other side, once I got over there, And I know this because my memory came back and it was so clear. It started, I was coming out of the Starbucks with my normal latte and I got in my car and I was going to CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, to work. And I had the clearest memory of me sitting in the car with that leg up. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the memory came back. And I will just read a little excerpt from the book of how I put it.
Okay, good.
I am spinning around insanely fast, like those tilt-a-whirl carnival rides, grabbing the side of the car door. I scream as my side of the car smashes head on into something. What is it? I realize I can't stop anything, and my voice fades. I fly out of my seat through the windshield. Around me, glass is shattering like splatter paint. I feel pieces of it cutting into my thighs and my legs. God, this hurts. And then something slices my left foot. Bad. I try to shield my face with my hand, my mouth wide open under it. Then I'm in the air for what feels like forever. When I finally hit the ground, I understand that I am going to die. My mind freezes. I scream, "Oh my God, help me." Then I have one final thought. I'm not going to make it. And I didn't. And your energy body, when you die, it opens up from top to bottom and your soul leaves. Okay. And that's what happened when I went up. And in the book, I called it Casper the Ghost was an angel that came and took me up. Now, after the book got published in August, I realized it was my grandfather on my father's side that came in an angel form. Because in the book, I said it was male and I knew all the qualities, but I never got it that it was my grandfather because my grandfather died from a massive heart attack at age 58. And he died in August. And in August, I was 58 and he came to me and said he was the one that did it. And I was just like, wow.
So I have a complete chills like all over I got chills in my jaw, which I'm not sure has ever occurred.
But it was like, because, people had always said, oh, they see deceased loved ones, the people they know. And I was just like, well, I didn't see that. And then my memory came, it's like, whoa. Now, this is almost 40 years later. Okay. So when I got to the other, it's a state. It's not a place. When I got to this state, I heard other voices. Okay. I'm not in my physical form. I could look down. I don't know how, I don't have eyes, but I could see, and I could see my body in a ditch. It was a corpse. It was mangled. And I was like, whoa, boy.
Holy shit.
That was a bad death. And I died with the fear that I did something bad and I was going to hell. Okay. That's what I died with. And so I heard this conversation on the other side of me, and it was two angels talking, and they weren't talking English. I don't know how I heard them, but it was telepathy or something, but it was very clear to me what they were saying. And they both said they were having a conversation about how we on this side need to ask for help in the angelic realm. They are there to help us. They want to help us. We need to establish a relationship with them. But because we have something called free will in our society, they are not going to intervene unless we ask, unless it's a life or death situation like mine was. And my grandfather just swooped down. But please, if you do not, we all have at least one guardian angel. Most of us have two or more. Please start dialoguing with either that angel or other angels. There's the guardian, angels have all different kinds. They present in all kinds of different ways. They have different purposes, but they are here to help us. So first thing, ask for help. Second thing, they told me, my grandfather, he said, you're going to be going back. And I was like, no. Oh, God,
I know. We talked about that before we started about how I felt like, I was like, oh no, I felt bad for you that you had to go because you were so happy.
Yeah, I was in an absolute state of bliss. Okay. I think what he said was your message is going to be to tell people not to be afraid of death. And in that, if you are afraid of death, you are truly not going to live. And so this fear of death is not real. Okay. It's a false belief system that something bad is going to happen to you. The whole part of where I was just beauty, was just love. It was so, the colors don't even all fit in the Crayola color box. Okay. They'd have to make a trainload of them because the colors are just unbelievable. There are other beings, other souls up there that, it's such a comfort because there's no negativity. There's no judgment. And that's one of the top 10 lessons in the book from research done by common lessons from people who have experienced near-death experiences. There's 10 of them, and they're all positive. And the first one is you do not die. Your physical body, yes, it dies, it decays. But your soul, that breath that you're breathing every day, if you've ever been to a funeral and you see the corpse or the person lying there, they don't really look like themselves. I don't care how good the cosmetologist does on them. They just don't get the hair right. They don't get, and what it is, it's their life force energy that's missing that makes them who they are.
Right.
So you're just seeing the shell basically. And what goes on is that life force energy. And on the other side of death for me, God was all around me. God was in me. God was me. I was God. God was presence and fullness and oneness. But most of all, God was love. Okay. All of that about him being punitive, judgmental, wrath, all of this kind of stuff, totally not true in my experience. That's all been man-made to put people in fear, and in your fear, you can be controlled. And you think about how much fear is going on in the world today. Okay. Fear is a very low vibration. Fear causes us to lose clarity because you are back here in your amygdala. You're not in your prefrontal cortex, which is where your executive reasoning is made. So when you're making decisions out of fear, they're not going to be good ones for you. But that pure, non-judgmental love. And I want people to start thinking of love, not only as an emotion, a noun and a verb, but as an energy. Love is an energy. And in that state, it was not that I suddenly had been forgiven for my mistakes. It's that they no longer existed. Nothing I had done on earth was being weighed and measured. It was simply the way my story had played out in one realm. And I was just like, so all of that is just like, whoosh, never happened. And I know I was taught that God was external for me. And so I kept looking for some kind of external being to have a relationship with. And I call it the vending machine concept of God. If I had put in the right behavior, the right change, and I pushed the Coca-Cola button, then dang it, I should get a Coca-Cola out. But if I put it in, got a Mountain Dew out, well, what happens? The problem's on me. It's not on the vending machine. It's not on God. It's me that screwed up. And if nothing comes out, whoa, I really did something bad. So it's never God's fault or Jesus's fault. It's always you've done something wrong. And I think I did NET, neuro-emotional technique, for 7 years. I worked with people, and I had a little 6-year-old girl, and she was in a fundamentalist church, and she was scared because she was adopted, and she did something bad, and she did not want to be separated from her family and end up in hell. So I asked her, I said, well, what do you think God is? And she said, well, God is a blue spirit with colors and balloons in all different colors, no head, and can talk. And clearly, this little girl is still having a direct experience with God, no other filters. And to me, as my concept of God evolves, that definition comes the closest to what I think God truly is. There's nowhere God is not. God is energy, and God is love in the purest form of it.
I love that so much. And I agree with that because like I started the show with, we're talking about like me being agnostic and knowing that there's a reason that I'm here. There's a reason why we forge friendships with people. There's a reason why I'm in love with whom I'm in love with, from my opinion. And I do believe that because I cannot live my life like from a fear-based place. It's just like I'm already scared enough about living in pain.
Yes.
But that's a totally different kind of fear. It's still fear-based though. But you had mentioned NET because we talked about your pain and your getting through emotions and getting through pain and going through all of that. NET is called neuro-emotional technique. So can you talk about what that actually is and how that's helped you?
Yes, because it's been around about 30 years, and it's a mind-body stressor technique that combines acupressure points, muscle testing, so that comes out of the field of kinesiology, and psychology. And so the Chinese figured this out years ago, that every organ has an emotion that coincides with it. Like the liver is anger. So what you do...
Oh yeah, my liver's pretty angry.
Yeah. Well, and 95 to 99% of what we operate on is at an unconscious level. Okay, so these are these tapes that got formed really early on. And if we didn't work through them appropriately, then we're going to get triggered present day when a set of circumstances presents itself and we hadn't resolved it in a healthy way back whenever it happened. So every single one of us has got emotions that are stuck in our body because you were told not to express something.
Of course,
and so
especially women.
Yeah. So you shut it down. And like me, I didn't get any mental health counseling as a result of my crash. My parents believed that Jesus and God would be my psychiatrist and my psychologist. Well, I didn't have a sit down session with Jesus or God. And needless to say, I developed a eating disorder. And back in the 80s, it was called compulsive eating. And it put me into the field of nutrition because I thought if I became a dietitian, then I'd be able to figure out what was wrong with me. Little did I know, I graduate and then I realized, no, I went on and binged for almost 20 years. And it was really because I hated myself was the bottom emotion because I was blamed for something from my parents' perspective, even though I wasn't to blame for the crash. He was driving, he was drunk, but that didn't matter. They blamed me and they have never forgiven me. And so I don't talk to my parents to this day, but I wanted to get back. I know this, your podcast is on pain and I know you live with pain every day. And I have my good days and my bad days with migraines and stomach stuff. I had a colostomy as well, and then they reversed it. But people ask me a lot, in terms of death about, dying alone and pain and stuff. And first of all, I want you to know you're never alone. There's always the spiritual realm around you, whether or not you feel it, connect to it or not, they are there. And the pain, when I died, it was horrific, the crash. This answer doesn't matter whether or not what your religion is or what your dogma is. But no, I had zero pain when I died. And you have to remember that the physical body and the soul are two separate things. And in my view, the actual moment of death is painless. And I do believe that physical drugs you can suffer pain up until the moment of death. And that's why they will give you morphine and painkillers and things like that. But the greatest moment is when we die. And why do I say that? Because all the negativity, the suffering, and the pain falls away. And my pain was being sent back to my mangled body and back to the confines of the identity that I was trying to leave behind. And that started the moment I woke into consciousness, when I opened my eyes and felt the pain of my body and realized where I was and what happened. And pain has been a huge area for me to try to learn, understand, manage, tolerate, and accept. And it's not easy for anybody that has chronic pain because I used to pride myself on being dependable and now I can't, and people don't understand it because they look at me and they think I'm okay, but I'm just not, looks are deceiving. And it is so misguided of people to just assume because you look a certain way that you are, you're healthy and that you can do this. And it's been very difficult for me to give myself permission to not judge me when I have to cancel on somebody last minute. So, if we as a society and to ourselves would quit judging our own thoughts, our own emotions, our own behaviors, that would be the best step that we can do toward truly accepting and loving and realizing that everyone and everything is connected. We are all energy at the end of the day. What leaves you and goes on is your breath. And in this cold weather we've been having, you can see your breath. That is vapor. That is energy. That is what goes on. And it's not this physical body. So I think we have it backwards. We've been spending about 80% working on the physical body and 20 on the spiritual. It needs to go 80% on the
flip flop.
Yeah. So that's
you
what I
me
wanted.
All tearing up as you saw. I'm over here like just sobbing, trying to keep.
I just want people to know
definitely
that.
Struck a chord.
So I still to this day have no memory of the pain. And you will hear a lot of people in their NDE stories say that they were, their spirit left them, their soul left them before the impact happened, like actually hitting the earth or whatever. So it happens mid mid to 3/4 way through. It's a lot. This book is a lot.
It is a lot, you guys. And you have to read this because it touches on so many things that are important in our lives that we take for granted. These messages that we've been given for our whole lives, however we were raised. And I mean, I was touched by every page in this book in some way, shape, or another. Well, I was. And I mean, I'm not somebody that's going to say something about a book or because I'm an avid reader. I read constantly and I've got like 17 different books going at the same time, And typically, I do read when I do have guests on my show, I do read their books. But this one in particular was really jarring for me in good ways and bad ways. But it really touched me. And I know that it's going to touch other people as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we jam out of here? I mean, I know we want to talk about your book and where we can find you and stuff like that.
Well, I guess I just want to tell people why I wrote it. I didn't realize, but it was helping me heal myself as I wrote it. And that's why it took so long, because I had to deal with the gap in the memory. I had to deal with a family that I was still trying to please, even though they were still being, there's such a term as spiritual abuse and spiritual bypassing. And those are all in the book, but you can be spiritually abused. And I think that is what so many of these religions have done to people by their actions and setting up belief systems that, in my opinion, are false. And it has caused people to live with guilt and fear. And these are vibrations that are so low and make you feel so shitty about yourself. And that is not what creator of this universe wanted us to feel. He wanted us to love this place. It's a beautiful earth, and we all need to take better care of Mother Earth, and we need to take better care of all sentient beings. Okay. And we need to take better care of each other, no matter what color, sexuality, any of that kind of stuff, because at the end, we all bleed red. That was what we always would say in the military. It doesn't freaking matter. And I hope my book will inspire you to live fully and freely with your heart and your hands opened as wide as you can. That's why I wrote it. And I hope you will check it out. It's called You Are Deathless. And my website is www.nicolekerr.com. And I will send you the first free chapters. There's a prayer of passing at the beginning that, to me, is just the most beautiful poem I've ever read about death. And it just reassures me about it. And I think it would for you too, especially if you're fearing that. And at some level, unconsciously, all of us do, because we truly don't know unless we've been there.
Thank you so much for this with us today. I'm been heavy reading your book, and it was heavy doing this episode actually, and in prepping for it. Just because I felt so connected to you from the first time we met anyways as well. So
thank you, Lyndsay. And I knew, I knew when I saw your podcast, we're in the game of life, and our soul has many lives. And this is just one of the many innings of it. And unfortunately, we're here to learn from it. And you're on your journey of healing, and I'm on mine. And we both agreed it's nonlinear. A plus B does not equal C.
No, it does not. It does not. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again for being here with us. I really appreciate our time, and I love you back, babe.
Sweetie. Aloha. Namaste.
Aloha.
And love.
You never know when your last picture will be taken. So put on some lipstick and some makeup and live like it's your last day, just in case, because you never know. You are exclusively invited to share this You're Never Alone, Bliss Out, You Are Love, VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.